Hi everyone, I'm back for another video. This time I am here to tell you about my tips and tricks on how I learn languages for free by myself. I would like to start by saying a big thank you to everyone who watched my last video. It means a lot to me. And also the people who were kind enough to leave some thoughtful comments and some constructive criticism. I really appreciate that you took the time to do that. If there's one thing you need to know about me, is that I'm cheap. I'm not actually cheap. I hate spending on things I could do for free. I hate spending on language classes. This is only going to be free if you have access to a good public library. If you don't, you may have to spend a few dollars. I know a lot of people like to find a linguistic exchange partner. I'm not I'm not really into that because to me the beginner level is just ugly, long, painful, and boring. So I would rather do that on my own and not have any witnesses. The first thing I would do is go on Wikipedia and read the languages page, and that'll give you so much information. You'll know about the history, and that's very important because you need to know what family the language belongs to and things like that. But the most important thing you need to learn is about the grammar, because that's the only way you'll know what you're getting yourself into. So you need to know, does the language have gender, masculine and feminine, neuter, or another gender? Does the language have verbs? Does it conjugate verbs? Does it have cases? Like some languages, depending on the words placed in the sentence, the ending will change. The second thing you're gonna have to do is learn the alphabet, learn how to pronounce each letter. The second thing I would do is find books. I would get a dictionary. You don't need to get a paper version, you can just find a good one online. I wouldn't get the super thick dictionaries first because those have too many words and I don't like flipping through the pages. I always forget my alphabet. I would get like a small pocket dictionary, and those have the most basic words, the words you have more chances of encountering. Of course, you're not gonna get like a monolingual dictionary. Get a bilingual dictionary in any language that you understand really well. Then I would get, maybe even before getting a dictionary, I would get a conversation handbook. What I mean by a conversation handbook is a book with pre-made sentences. Usually they're for travelers, so books that tell you how to say hi, how to ask, how is it going, how to name certain foods, how to ask for the restrooms. Usually they come with a CD or an app where you can listen to the sentences. And that's really useful because what you're gonna want to do is just read the sentences, hear them, hear the audio, and then repeat them. And that's how you learn the pronunciation. This kind of book usually has very basic notes, like very basic grammar notes, but not too complicated, and that's what you want for now. Okay, so this is the interesting part. What I did when I was reading that really helped me is a translation. I would read a magazine article. I would copy a sentence in my notebook. Then under that line, I would translate the words word for word. Even if it doesn't make sense, you just translate what you see word for word. Even if it's just like don't or not, you translate that. Then the third line is a translation that makes sense based on your second line, which is a translation that doesn't really make sense because it's word for word. This doesn't really work for magazine articles because you don't have access to a translation. If you're reading a novel or a book that has been translated, I would recommend comparing your translation with the official translation. Well, let's talk about music. This is an Algerian song. I won't try to pronounce this. But here, wait, I don't have enough hands. Okay, the first line is in Arabic. The second line is a transliteration. It's just like transferring it in the Latin alphabet. The third line is a word-by-word translation. And then I didn't do a fourth line because I was lazy, so I just checked and compared with the official translation I found. And this is so important, okay? In order to learn, you need to follow a story. There needs to be a narrative and the stuff you're exposing yourself to. That's why I love YouTube for language learning. Because YouTube, I watch a lot of vlogs, and vlogs are great because you have the images, you have some context, you have actual people pronouncing words the way they would normally do. People always cut words or cut letters from words, so that's what you're gonna learn. And also, it's gonna be way more interesting because you actually care about what you're watching. Learning words is all fun and games until you have to remember them. And I've found that the best way to remember words isn't to learn them, well, like I said, you have to learn them in context. So you have to learn them as part of a story, as part of a narrative. So songs, oh my god, songs are the best for memorization because you have a melody and you have words to that melody and you've learned them by heart. So you're just gonna have to sing the song in your head and you're gonna remember all the words, and it's a story, so like there's a sequence and everything makes sense. You can also use mnemonic tricks. For example, I learned the word Geschäft in German, which means business or store. And my trick was, okay, so I walk into a store and there is a gay chef, Geschäft. See what I did there? They're kind of like a mind palace, but way more simple. The only way you're going to learn a word is not with a vocabulary list. It is by hearing the word somewhere, not knowing what it means, learning it, and then rehearing it. Because if you only learn it once, your brain is going to forget. Don't read about the grammar first and then read books or watch movies. Watch movies first, read books first, and then learn about the grammar. What happens if you read the grammar first is that you read some grammar, you're not going to remember it because it doesn't make sense to you, you don't speak the language yet. Then you're going to watch TV, you're going to read books, and it's not going to make any sense at all. And you're just going to be wasting your time. What you need to do is watch movies, read books, see a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense in your head, but see it over and over and over and over and over again. And then read the rule in a grammar book or somewhere and have like an aha moment where you're like, oh, that's why that makes sense now. But it's gonna be easier to remember because you'll have encountered that aspect of the grammar a lot before reading about it. You should always focus more on your pronunciation than on your grammar. I remember when I was a French tutor in Cégep, and I would do like during the first tutoring session we would just like talk so that I could evaluate their French level. Some of them were stuttering and they were really trying to focus on the grammar, and the others were just speaking freely and they had a really good accent. And actually those who were speaking freely and had a really good pronunciation, their French might have been worse than the ones who were really like stopping and overthinking the grammar. So this is just to say that people don't care about your grammar. I'm sorry. I know you put a lot of effort into this, but nobody cares about your grammar. If you're traveling, if you're at a bar with friends or meeting new people, they are not going to care about your grammar. They just don't want you to be awkward. And it's going to be awkward if you're overthinking your grammar. This has to be one of my favorite subjects too, which is discipline. Because when you learn in a classroom context, you have a teacher kicking your ass. And I've been on both sides of this. I've been the student and I've been the teacher, so I know how it goes. You have a teacher giving you homework, you have a teacher grading your homework, you usually have to pay, so it hurts, so you want to learn more. But when you're learning by yourself, you have none of this. You have to be the stick and the carrot. What you're gonna have to do is be hard on yourself and know your limits. For example, me, if I haven't practiced in a while, there's gonna be a little voice in my head telling me, kick your ass. You can do more, you can do better. But at the same time, if you're always on your own back, it's gonna get boring and you're gonna get discouraged. Because the thing is, too, with classroom learning, as I've said, the teacher grades your work. And personally, a good grade gives me a boost and it makes me want to keep learning, which means that at some point, you are going to have to tap yourself on the shoulder and say, wow, I did such great work. Look how far I've come. Look at all of the progress I've made. Oh, don't put any time pressure because each language is different. You can do this for a year and then forget about it and then come back to it 2 years after and you're still gonna remember some parts. That's what I like the most, I think, about language learning is just being lost, and your brain is so stimulated because you don't understand it. You're like surviving. I can't focus on anything else. I really have to focus on what's in front of me and how I can understand. And for me, that's just like the most relaxing thing ever because I can disconnect from everything else that's happening. And also, you find out that your brain is so smart. There are so many connections you can make. I love when I have a eureka moment and I realize that this word that I've known for my entire life, but I didn't really know where it came from, I see it linked to another word and I'm like, oh my god, that's where it comes from, that's what it means. My favorite part about learning songs in another language is when I'm at a party and the song is playing and I'm just lip syncing to the words like it's nothing. And I take a lot of pride in this. If you like to travel, of course that's going to be a huge flex on the people you're traveling with because you're going to be ordering their food, you're going to be buying their train tickets, you're going to be the one who knows if the water is drinkable or not. About the ethics, or should I say the etiquette of language learning. If you're learning a new language, you probably have someone in your friend group or someone you know who speaks this language. And you may want to ask them, well, can I ask you a couple questions? Or you just meet someone randomly who speaks it and you're like, oh my god, I'm so excited, I'm learning this language. Great, but be careful. Do not treat people who speak the language you want to learn like native informants. Don't expect free labor from them because they do not owe you a language class. Don't assume that they speak it just because they look like a certain ethnic group. When you learn that they do speak the language, always ask first if you can practice it with them. If they say yes, great, have a conversation. But don't assume, never assume, and don't judge. Don't judge people who don't speak the language of the ethnic group they belong to. Especially first generation or even second generation, third generation immigrants, they don't need that burden from you. Last thing about etiquette and ethics. Okay, this one is gonna be very deep. When you're learning a language that is associated with an ethnic group that isn't your own, unlearn your racism because we are all racist. I hope that by learning more about the culture and about the language and about the complexity and the beauty of the language, you are going to leave behind your stereotypes about this culture, or confirm some of them, but see where they come from. You shouldn't just reproduce what you're doing in your own language in another language. You are a guest in this culture. You should be grateful that you have access to this culture through their language. Don't ever think that this belongs to you, that don't go into this thinking that you're gonna master the language and you're gonna master the culture, because that's not what it's about. Tell me in the comments what language you're learning right now or what language you're planning to learn. Also tell me please if you have different tips and tricks from the ones I just gave you. Good luck!